Hello, and welcome to the third episode of our CRE Innovation Series. I'm Jane Gold, Offer Manager here at Altus Group, and I'm excited to be your host for today's episode. This series is all about spotlighting the most exciting advancements and innovations shaping the future of commercial real estate. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Isabelle Granahan-Field, an investor at Camber, a leading venture capital firm focused on real estate technology, also known as proptech. Camber has backed some of the industry's most innovative companies, including Built, the interactive instructions platform, and VTS, commercial real estate leasing and asset management platform. But before we dive in, a quick intro for those of you discovering us here on YouTube. Altus Group connects data, analytics, and expertise to deliver the intelligence necessary to drive optimal commercial real estate performance. If you're in the CRE industry, you may know us as the company behind Argus Software. With that, let's begin and get started. Isabelle, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having
It
me.
is
I'm excited to be here.
awesome. It would be great to kind of kick us off just understanding a bit more about your background and experience. Do you mind sharing a bit about your career journey thus far?
Yes, happy to. As you know, and what makes this even more exciting is that I actually started my career at Altus Group when I graduated from college in the New York office in the valuation consulting group. I spent some time there and then worked at CRE Partners in New York, investing and managing commercial assets. So have been in the real estate world most of my career. At that time, I focused largely on our retail portfolio. So there's a lot of noise and change going on in that sector.
Awesome. It is funny and certainly a full circle moment starting at Altus Group and now coming back in your new kind of post at Camber and joining us for this conversation. So obviously you kind of got your start in commercial real estate here at Altus Group, and you mentioned yourself that you've stayed in the industry since then. Curious to kind of hear what maybe initially piqued your interest in real estate, kind of how you got started in this sector, and then maybe what has made it a sector that you've wanted to kind of continue to grow your career in.
Yeah. I think real estate has a unique combination of kind of the economic and finance that I was interested in, combined with consumer driven trends. Much of what dynamics and changes happen in real estate are driven by consumer behavior and how we shop and how we eat and how we live and how we work. And that's always been really interesting for me. I mentioned working in retail real estate mostly because that's what piqued my interest in kind of the intersection of real estate and technology. As I was working in what we used to call sort of the death of the mall in retail, and a lot of the negative changes that were coming to the sector in the 2017 to 2020 range. One of the things that I was really interested in and started observing in the retail landscape as everything was being reshaped was how retailers were harnessing technology and this emerging proliferation between retailers and landlords that were innovating and using tech to improve their operation, and those that weren't. And so because of that interest, I decided to go back to business school and learn more about that intersection of real estate and technology. And from there joined Camber, which is a great combination of those two interests, and allows me to stay pretty close to the real estate world and the real asset world, but now investing in a new kind of asset class.
Yeah, that's awesome and really interesting and resonates with me. I know I kind of landed in commercial real estate by accident, but what I really do enjoy about it is that it's everywhere, whether or not it's obvious or not. Right, you're walking down the street, every building you see is commercial real estate in most cases. Right, even you mentioned the intersection of retail and technology, and the retail kind of sector hurting, in the last few years. I think what I enjoy about commercial real estate and learning more about the industry is that it really is something that touches you in your everyday life, whether you see it or not. So I certainly can appreciate that and agree that it is a really interesting and a sector to be in. And I think obviously you mentioned your interest between the intersection of CRE and technology, which probably makes Camber Creek a perfect fit for you, especially knowing that your firm is particularly focused on driving innovation in the sector. So I'm curious if you can maybe share a bit more about what that actually means. Like, what does innovation mean to you or mean to Camber Creek? And what are you specifically looking for in potential portfolio companies that signals to you this company is doing something special or this company is truly embracing innovation?
Yeah. I'll start with, how we think about investing and I think what differentiates Camber Creek in the space. We invest in all kinds of real estate technology. So anything that serves the built world, which I would say encompasses fintech, construction tech, insure tech, retail tech. So a pretty broad definition of real estate technology. The way that we define this is really, is it applicable to our strategic investment base, which is made of more than 300 strategic partners that manage and own billions of square feet of real estate across every asset class and geography and kind of tier of asset. So we what that what that allows us to do is really define proptech broadly. We're not looking at a single type of property. We're not looking at a single type of operator. And it also allows us to evaluate companies differently. So we run something called a beta lab that we test the technology with our LP partners or other people in our network to really get a sense of the value that those technologies are providing before we invest in the technology. And it also gives our investor base access to new technologies and the ability to try things before they hit the market or have access to vetted technology. I think this approach and kind of how we think about our LP base as partners and this flywheel effect between our investors and the companies we invest in demonstrates how we think about thesis development too and sourcing deals. We remain very connected to the brick and mortar world in every sense. So we're sharing companies with our network, but they're also sharing their pain points with us. So a lot of the thematic sourcing we do is really based on these real-time conversations and feedback that we're getting from those operators. And we're, I think, investing in real problems versus sometimes what you see, which is investing in solutions that are still searching for a problem. And I think the other key piece of this is that most of our team really comes from the real estate operating world. So we kind of have that operational experience and institutional context that is so important in an industry like real estate, as you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I know that speaks to me pretty directly. I come from the product management world. So, of course, understanding and being, we always say, be the master of the pain point is the most important thing. So it's interesting to know that even coming at it from an investor perspective, you're kind of taking that similar approach. And I think especially in the commercial real estate sector where there are so many unique pain points and unique individuals that play an active role in the life cycle of an asset or in development, whatever it might be, that there are so many pain points and challenges, and that it's incredibly important to really know what problem you're solving to deliver, a really valuable product, which is something we're obviously working towards here at Altus. But in your perspective and in your role at Camber Creek, right, investing in those companies that are going to make, meaningful impact to the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Curious to kind of hear more maybe about some of your portfolio companies. I know you guys have a number of them. Can you share maybe an example of a company in your portfolio that really stands out and embraces what you think of when you hear innovation?
Yeah. I think, all of our portfolio companies are innovative. So um, it's hard to pick a favorite child, but I think what we define as like an innovative or company that we're interested in investing in has two traits. And one of them is a clear and demonstrated ROI to the end user. And then the market potential. So does this company have the ability to generate a venture scale return? Um, one example, a recent investment we made in a company, Twin Knowledge, which builds bespoke AI co-pilots for real estate and construction companies. So part of our diligence, kind of as I alluded to before, we introduced the company Twin Knowledge, which we call TK, to a home builder. And while they started using Twin Knowledge, they were able to expedite their drawing review by 2x and then reduce their construction related costs by 25%. So even as we're going through diligence, we're able to build conviction in the value proposition that they're delivering to the customer. And then we see the kind of market potential with the different use cases and end users that the technology can apply to. So that's kind of how we think about innovation and our investment lens.
Awesome. That's a great example. And I think really speaks to maybe your specific approach, right? Where you're deeply analyzing in the beginning and then able to kind of measure and make connections and monitor success and the potential of a company throughout its kind of growth trajectory. So it's really kind of a unique position for you to be in, to be able to see some of these really early stage companies and then almost follow them through their entire development and growth projectile. So it must be pretty exciting. Is there one company maybe that you were involved in the really early stages that you're particularly passionate about? I know you can't pick favorites, but maybe just one example that really stands out as maybe one that you initially found or has been a part of its kind of growth plan since it first joined your portfolio.
Yeah. I'll talk about our most recent investment, which I worked on this spring. It's a company called Whale that manages the security deposit workflow for residential properties. And I think the opportunity we saw there was, although there's been the security deposit alternative space has been proliferated over the past 5 or so years. We haven't seen them effectively address the traditional security deposit workflow. And in many cases, the alternatives are costly to renters and complicated for the property management teams. So Whale is kind of uniquely positioned to improve that traditional security deposit flow. So the renter is still required to pay the security deposit up front, but now they can earn interest on the deposit in an account that Whale sets up for them. That's controlled by the property manager, but they can watch their interest grow throughout the duration of their lease. And then operationally, the landlord is no longer managing the receival of the deposit, the compliance of the deposit throughout the life cycle of the lease, or refunding the deposit. So it kind of takes the management off the plate of the property owner, which saves them time and mitigates some of the risk that comes with managing those deposits. And it also allows residents to earn interest and kind of gives them some visibility into what's going on with their deposit throughout their lease.
Awesome. I want to go back to actually something you mentioned in your previous example and response. So I know you kind of identified the two kind of indicators or measures that you guys look for when evaluating, a company and whatnot, one being the ROI and the other being kind of the market opportunity. Once the company kind of enters your portfolio, becomes a portfolio company, are there any other kind of metrics or activities that you're continually monitoring to kind of understand the success kind of as the company continues to grow and how they're continuing to almost iterate on their own innovations?
I would say the metrics are really company dependent, because kind of as I mentioned, like we do have a broad definition of real estate tech, and so our portfolio is kind of broad in use case and technology. I wouldn't say um, there's KPIs like that are specific that can be applied to the entire portfolio, other than the traditional financial metrics and kind of customer success and health and all of that.
Right.
We, I would say, internally we track kind of the introductions and customers and how we've added value. That's something that is pretty core to our investment thesis, is like really delivering value to companies we invest in throughout our investment period, and that comes from a number of different contributions, whether it's recruiting and hiring support, or growth strategies and kind of M&A support, or customer introductions, or helping build out advisory boards through introductions in our network. So that can show up in a lot of different forms, just depending on kind of what the company needs and the stage and all that.
Right. Makes sense. So I know you mentioned a few times, right, that you guys take a very broad definition to prop tech, kind of inclusive of insurance tech, fintech maybe. And I know you shared a few other examples. So clearly you guys have to be kind of experts in trends and what's happening in those other industries that are maybe, uh, complementary to prop tech. Do you see one of maybe those parallel industries or complementary industries that you're seeing a lot of unique innovation or growth that you feel like more traditional commercial real estate should be paying attention to for inspiration when it comes to automating or digitizing or creating new products to disrupt the true or core CRE industry?
Yeah, I think fintech's a great example of that, and I'll use that just because we made as I mentioned, whale, like as our recent investment, kind of in that intersection of real estate and fintech, and we've seen a lot of innovation in workflow orchestration and kind of embedded finance and underwriting automation. All of these are areas in commercial real estate where there's still reliance on kind of manual decision making, and we're seeing horizontal tools or kind of other fintech solutions innovate, and a lot of opportunity for those tools to be applied in the vertical real estate use case too.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Kind of on a similar note, just looking at the rise or the increased growth of the prop tech space. If we look back, 10, 12, 13 years ago, prop tech was still pretty new. And it seems like the thought about even digitizing or automating parts of, an asset workflow or commercial real estate professionals like daily activities was just starting to be explored. And now today, with yourself and your firm as a primary example, there's so much more movement and activity when it comes to the prop tech space. From your perspective and your experience, both working in the industry for a number of years, but now kind of having that investor hat on and looking forwards to some of these new innovations, how would you describe or characterize the shift in the prop tech landscape?
Yeah,
I guess even from Camber Creek's perspective, right, since you guys got started.
yeah. I mean, it's been it's evolved quite a bit since I've been in the industry, and especially since Camber Creek has been around for over a decade now, when prop tech wasn't even really a term. I think the best way I could summarize it is how the focus has shifted from nice to have technology and kind of these perks to really need to have technology, and that's definitely driven by kind of a shift in the market and willingness to spend on technology. But when proptech was first emerging as a real tech category, you saw this focus on tenant amenities and experience, things like resident apps and smart home features and delivery lockers. And these were features kind of driven by market competition, not necessarily necessity. And now we really see owners and operators focused on this clear and demonstrated ROI for the technology investment that they're making. They want to see how it's either going to drive top line revenue or help reduce costs. And they want to be able to measure that and value it as they're making a technology decision. So they're definitely more focused on delivering like a financial return with the technology that they're using than before. I would say you're also now dealing with technology fatigue and change management fatigue that comes with where we are in the evolution of proptech. So you're no longer dealing with as many of the kind of like educational challenges of getting people up to speed, but the challenge with the maturity of the sector now is like this fatigue and is it worth it to make this technology change with your team and with the cost?
Yeah, I think that really also kind of emphasizes through some of the challenges or barriers that the industry has faced historically. Obviously, real estate has that unfortunate maybe reputation of being a late adopter when it comes to technology, whether it be lack of access to data in the first place, or just kind of risk averse stakeholders, or people just being comfortable with how things work, and that change management piece is a huge part of it. So kind of a similar question, but maybe a bit different as it takes the perspective of the industry itself. But what have you seen or do you see as those biggest barriers that have made adopting technology difficult in this industry? And I know you've kind of already highlighted that it's improving for a few different reasons, but just curious if you can share your perspective a bit more on maybe what those historic barriers have been, and then any maybe experiences you've witnessed through adoption of some of your portfolio companies' technologies by kind of industry companies, kind of how that change management was effective or successful.
Yeah. I think definitely the barriers are coming down. I think one of the kind of structural barriers has always been like, is this a core business improvement or is it a distraction? And I think as the technology has matured and improved, and as it, the ability to demonstrate how it's changing your core business operations continues to emerge. There's more openness now, and it's seen as less of a distraction and more of a necessity. And I would say that's really what's exciting now, is that I would say most operators understand that inaction is probably going to be more expensive than experimentation right now, with rising operating costs and kind of like the margin compression that we've seen over the last couple of years. There's now, I think, an understanding that you are going to have to adapt and embrace innovation and technology, and to not do so is more of a risk than some of the change management and that we've discussed.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I like how you said the inaction might be more costly than the experimentation or adoption of something new. I think that's a great way to kind of sum it up. I like that.
Yeah.
I want to take, maybe a minute to go back and talk a bit more again about Camber Creek and your portfolio companies, because I know you have, so many spanning across a few different industries. In terms of your most successful kind of portfolio companies, do you see any kind of patterns or commonalities between them? Like, are they approaching a problem a similar way? Are they tackling similar problems that, you see as like almost the recipe for success? I know you have a number of different industries kind of in your portfolio tackling different problems, but is there anything that you guys have noticed in your experience that, whatever it is, the approach, the problems, the people, the thought process that has made them particularly successful?
Yeah, I think I'll talk about two of our kind of consumer facing technologies, Built and Flex. Um, and like I would say most of our investments are primarily B2B, so selling into real estate owners and operators or that kind of enterprise. But Built and Flex are also consumer products, and I think what we've seen make them so successful, both in our portfolio and just as standalone companies, is figuring out how to leverage the real estate world to acquire those customers efficiently. And both of those companies have partnerships and alliances with real estate portfolios where they can distribute the product through a network of buildings and real estate owners at very low costs. And part of that is obviously a testament to the quality of the product and general consumer interest. But direct to consumer is a very different sales motion, and these companies have understood the real estate, the strength of real estate footprints and how to leverage that to reach customers effectively.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Nice. And I know you are an investor at Camber Creek. So curious, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but back to your actual kind of role and how you are a steward for kind of the mission of the firm, and a steward for putting the kind of innovation first on the ground when you're looking at these companies. What is your actual kind of role in nurturing these companies and helping them grow? What is your involvement, and kind of how do you support them?
Yeah. So I'm on the investment team. I would say my time is divided between sourcing and diligencing and underwriting new investment opportunities. And then because we are an active and typically a lead investor and taking a board seat, I do spend a lot of time working with and supporting our existing portfolio companies. And this spans kind of some of the value add things I mentioned, whether it's kind of sales org support, or recruiting for talent, using our network to help fill key roles, or advising on kind of growth strategies, whether it's organic or M&A strategies, funding strategies, and then really leveraging our network to help with customer support and introductions and references and all of that.
Nice. Is there anything that you like have seen that you're particularly excited about, where the kind of prop tech or whatever tech kind of where we're going? Anything that particularly excites you that you've seen?
I'm really excited about where we're going. I think this is like a exciting part of the prop tech evolution, where it's more crowded now, and so you're seeing founders and entrepreneurs innovate in areas where there are real problems, because there's not space for anything else. And so the owners and operators have certain pain points left, and like that's where the real innovation opportunity is. And I think things like insurance, where both like sort of environmental and regulatory factors are making insurance a big pain point for real estate operators. There's a big innovation opportunity there. I think there continues to be kind of fintech and payments opportunities in real estate. But I think it's exciting to be in a place where the innovation that is coming now is coming from like a true pain point opportunity versus like a perk that we might have seen in prior years.
Yeah, I think you're definitely in a fortunate and exciting position. I can imagine you're getting like the sneak peek into what's coming, and maybe even hearing of challenges that many of us don't even really know our challenges yet. So you're really on the front lines of all of these new things and new innovations. So I can imagine how exciting that is.
Yeah, it really is.
With that, if we kind of zoom out and take your perspective, obviously, right, you are on those front lines of seeing and evaluating the next best thing and seeing new ideas every day being pitched on different technologies and how they may disrupt or completely change the commercial real estate industry. If you were to look in your crystal ball to the future, what would you say the CRE tech world might look like in 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had one of those, but I will say to the what I see changing in the industry is really how tech stacks are configured. I think part of what adoption has driven over the last years is kind of these fragmented tech platforms that operate in silos more than users probably hope. And so I think the next few years we're going to see more platform consolidation and the ability to plug in solutions with each other and really just like a unified tech stack that gives the user access to all of their data and kind of all of their capabilities in one place versus the more fragmented solutions we're seeing today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I know the disparate data sets, fragmented data sets, all of the works has certainly been a challenge kind of for this industry for a long time. I know that's something I see in my role in talking to our own clients. So I hope for all of us that that is a challenge that we'll be able to continue to solve and provide those meaningful benefits and greater value to the industry who really needs that access to data in one place. So will be exciting to watch and certainly look forward to continuing to see your portfolio companies continue to grow and possibly solve some of those challenges as well.
Yes.
So we will see what happens, but hopefully we're both right in our prediction, and then we can look back in 5 years and say, I had a conversation with someone and we predicted just that.
I hope so.
Me too. Maybe we'll become millionaires too. You never know. Alrighty. Thanks, Isabelle, so much. It was so great to kind of connect and learn more about your portfolio companies, what innovation means to you and Camber Creek, and what you guys are doing to really drive and encourage your portfolio companies to continue to evolve and solve those pain points and bring new and innovative solutions to the industry.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Jane. It was great to chat with you.
Awesome. And thank you for joining us in our 3rd episode of our CRE Innovation Series. We hope you enjoyed this discussion on proptech innovation. If you found the conversation insightful, be sure to like and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, any thoughts or questions, so definitely leave a comment below. And stay tuned for our next episode where we will continue to explore more areas of CRE innovation.